For this one, I'm going to try a slightly different approach. I have two little connecting devices on these headphones, and usually I put in the black connecting device, which is supposedly for the speaker. But this time I put in the red connecting device, which is for ostensibly the headphones. So whether that makes any difference or not, I don't know. But we'll try it. And if the quality is still really bad, I'll have to just experiment. Um, so I won't keep this one too long. I want to talk about the nature of online friendships or online acquaintances because really that's what they are. Now, I've spoken in a few videos about the influence of digital technology. We all know how much people can spend on social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter. I think Facebook in particular relates to this video because there's a lot of dubious groups online on Facebook, like especially the AdMe groups. Now, I fully confess I've had a look at those a few times. They're basically groups which are technically breaking the rules, but they basically just have a situation whereby a lot of people randomly say add me, and a lot of the time it's young women kind of showing off their boobs and young guys showing off their pics, and it's definitely quite a cynical approach to making friends. And I don't even think you can really call it friendship at all. Um, there may occasionally be people who actually get connected this way. I'm not even talking in relationship terms. I'm talking about friendship. I have a wide range of people connected online. Now, at some point, I'm going to really sit down and go through it and think, this is someone I never speak to. What is the point of being connected? But what I would say is, I don't think there's anything wrong with having acquaintances. So, a lot of the people I know online from all over the world, I may have met them through mutual interest. For example, on Facebook, there's numerous groups about various um, hobbies, various ideologies, various campaigns, and certainly some of those people I've met mutually through those groups. Now, what I find is that when I make updates, some of these people tend to like my updates, to comment on them. So I have had interaction with some of these people, and I think that's great. But one thing I think you have to be very assertive with online is that an online friendship will only ever be an online friendship. When people come to me and say, "Oh, Nathan, I met this guy online, or I met this girl online," I always tell them to be very cautious because I take the view that you could have lots of Skype talks, you could see the profile of the person, and they may well be who they say they are. But I really think that with that barrier in the first place of the screen, there's always going to be that possibility that you could have an argument, then it's over. I think that's different from the real world. If you argue with a friend in the real world, okay, it's still going to be an unpleasant atmosphere, but I think it's harder in the real world for a friend to just cut you out. It happens, does happen, but for me, cyber communication can be a bit of an easy way out sometimes. I remember I got close to someone, we had a lot in common, we got on very well with each other. Then one day she just decided that I'd done something wrong. She never bothered telling me what it was. And I racked my brain to think, well, what have I done that's made her so upset? What have I... And looking back on it, I think what had happened was we were getting on well, we had a shared interest. And I think her perception was that something was going in terms of a relationship. Now, from my perspective, I'd never given that impression. I'd never flirted with her. I'd never sort of led her on in that way, but somehow she took it to mean that. And yeah, she was an attractive girl. I could well have thought about that, but that wasn't the line I was going down. And then she just called me lots of names, and that was it. She blocked me and saying, well, what the fuck? What was that all about? And she didn't even have the decency to explain what it was. So that's precisely what can happen in... Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen in the real world. I'm not saying that, there aren't people that will cut you off and not explain, but I think it's more common online. And certainly online, there's that barrier. Also, if someone's on the other side of the world, there's the whole time zone thing. And, people, the thing about the internet, and this refers to friendships, but it refers to any situation. You can end an argument, you can end a confrontation with a switch of a button. In the real world, it isn't that simple. Say you get into a confrontation in a pub, it wouldn't necessarily result in a fist fight, but it would be a bit tense, and you could make excuses and say I need to go now, or you could end up in a fist fight, or it's a tense situation. Now, I'm not saying the argument is a good thing. In fact, I'm not. I don't get much out of arguments. I don't particularly enjoy them, but I really want to underscore this fact that online friendships are never, ever a sure thing. They just aren't. Because you can think that you know someone, you can have talked to them for months, even years. And for me, it's not, I'm not being cynical. I'm not saying everyone online is fake. But I think people do need to be cautious because there's something there that people can shield themselves that they can't in the real world. I mean, they could get away with insincerity that wouldn't be so easy in the real world. And I've learned this through years of being active on these sites. I know what they're like, and so there's people I like, I get a good impression from, I get on with, but I wouldn't class any of them as a close friend, and I think it would be a mistake to do so. And I hold the same principle, to be honest, about subscribers. So, I respect my subscribers and I'm grateful for them. But if a subscriber said, "Oh, let's be great friends" or something, I'd be slightly cautious because in the end of the day, if I don't see that person, if all I have to go on is a username and some comments, it's simply too implausible. It's too, and I'm not being cynical by that. I don't want anyone to be offended by that. I'm just talking about reality here. Um, for me, a friendship has to have some real world experience. You have to have knowing that person in real life. You have to have had some shared experience. Maybe it's been traveling together. Maybe it's been, connected activity in some sort of social club, or maybe you've dated. It could be anything. Um, but I really think that online friendships, you need to take them with a little bit of caution because there's simply never a sure thing because there's always that barrier. And I've spoken to a lot of young people, a bit younger than me, let's say early 20s, who have invested so much emotionally into an online friendship, and I always tell them to be cautious. I always say, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you should be cautious about this. And this is when they've come to me for advice. Incidentally, it's not like I've just told them that. Um, so that's it. I'll just leave that there. I think you really have to be careful. And again, this shouldn't be seen as cynical. I'm connected to people because I want to be connected to them at a given time. But I know 2, 3 months down the line, we might not talk anymore, and that's that. Real world friendships, you can get hurt and you can get disappointed with people, and maybe you can let people down. But I think online friendships, if you don't invest that much emotionally into it in the first place, you're not going to be disappointed. Because that's the other side of this. When someone does decide to block you for no reason, or they just never bother contacting you or whatever, if you haven't invested that huge level of emotional weight in it in the first place, you're going to be much less impacted by it. There's people right now who I spoke to quite a lot before. I haven't spoken to them for a while, and I might cut them off or they might cut me off, and I really couldn't care less. It's nothing personal. It's just reality. Now, with real world friendships, that's a different matter. In that case, you do sometimes feel let down. You can feel that you're putting more into a friendship than they are, and so there's a whole different dynamic there. But just a closing few thoughts. Online connections can definitely have their place in terms of subscribers in the case of YouTube, in terms of finding mutual interests in the case of Facebook. Um, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but just be aware that not everyone is who they say they are. Point one. Point two, even if they are who they say they are, people live in different parts of the world, there's different time zones, things don't always work out the way. So it might seem like they're really connecting with someone. You can have a Skype talk, and then further down the line, they just don't have time for you anymore. Or maybe you don't have time for them. Could work both ways. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you've had any experiences. And I hope no one's offended by this. I'm very grateful for all the subscribers I have. But I just think people have to be honest as well. And there's a world of difference between having a shared experience with someone in the real world and connecting with people online. Thanks for watching.